Dr. Mindy here, and on this video, we're going to talk about the topic that so many of you I know are trying to change, and that is belly fat. I get it. And on this video, I'm going to show you 3 things that you probably haven't heard yet on how you can move the needle on burning that belly fat and burn it fast. So if you are new to my channel, I just want to say welcome. I'm a woman on a mission to get the whole world metabolically healthy. So I am super happy you're here. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell and dive on in. I got a whole world of fasting here for you to learn, and I'm really excited that you're here. But on this video, we're going after belly fat. So let's dive in.
Pioneer in the fasting
Do a long fast one day, your blood sugar going up and down.
We're in it together.
Okay, the first thing, and I'm going to teach this to you like I teach my academy members when I'm walking through a principle, is I want you to understand what belly fat is. Because it's really interesting. We could look at ourselves in the mirror and we could say, okay, well, I don't like my arm fat. I don't like my face fat, like certain parts of our body we don't like. But what we don't realize is that all fat is not the same. So in different parts of the body, the depositing of fat on different parts of the body gives you an indication as to what is going on hormonally within your system. So with the belly fat, which is such a common thing for so many of us to want to get rid of, there is really one hormone that we want to address, and that is cortisol. We've talked a lot about in fasting, about insulin. Definitely that is a big hormone that a lot of us are trying to change. Leptin, that is your fat burning hormone. A lot of you have asked me questions about that. But before I go into these 3 things, I really want you to remember that cortisol and belly fat, those go hand in hand. So as your belly is growing, it's not always diet related. It can also be stress related. So let me give you 3 tips you can do. Tip number 1 is that we have to use cortisol, otherwise we will store cortisol. So cortisol, the hormone cortisol, naturally gets produced in our body, and it peaks about 2 hours after we wake up. And when cortisol peaks, what your body wants you to do to be able to use cortisol is move. So when we know that the height of cortisol should be 2 hours after we get up, then we should be moving 2 hours after we get up. And if you're not moving 2 hours after you get up, then what's happening is that is going to get stored in your belly. So I know we all have different schedules and it's not always possible for you to work out 2 hours after you get up. But if there was one time I would recommend that you work out, especially if you're going after that belly fat, it's going to be early in the morning, a couple hours after you get up. The second time that you're going to want to look at using cortisol, not storing cortisol, is after a stressful event. So outside of the natural cortisol production, like the morning, when cortisol comes on the scene, let's say in the afternoon when you've had a really stressful event, what cortisol wants you to do is move. It wants you to use that. Think of it like an energizing hormone that comes in and it's like, the tiger's coming after you, go. And it wants you to use it and move with it. So if I'm sitting at my desk at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I just had a stressful meeting at work, and then I continue to sit another 4 to 5 hours after that, that cortisol that came in during that stress is going to go right to my belly. So one way that we can go after belly fat and one way we can prevent belly fat from getting worse is by every time there is something majorly stressful for you, that you get up and you walk. It might even be you get up and walk to the bathroom. It doesn't have to be a long walk, but you want to get moving so that cortisol doesn't get stored. I've shared this story a lot that during the pandemic, I was like walking my neighborhood 3, 4, 5 times a day. Every time I had an overwhelming, stressful thought, I would just get out and walk out in my neighborhood so that I could use that cortisol, not store it. So remember, cortisol wants you to move. When cortisol comes on the scene, we got to move or it's going to be stored in your belly fat. On the other flip side of that, for those of you that are trying to set up a better lifestyle for yourself, I want to encourage you to front load your day. This is a concept that I just added to a new chapter that's going in the Menopause Reset. It'll come out in June. It's going to be relaunched in June with a whole new chapter on sleep. And I talked about front loading your day. And this is the way I like to make front load my day. I do my workouts in the morning. I have my morning meditation and morning time where I get my mind centered. And then most of my meetings are happening between about 8 and 4. And then I like to be done at 4 so that I can start to wind down in the back half of the day. This is primarily how we were designed. And I get that we all don't have lifestyles that we can do that with. But even if you can be conscious of that, your cortisol wants you to front load your day so you can move with it. The more we get the stressful things earlier in the day, the less the cortisol stress hormone is going to be stored later on in the day. So the timing of how you use this cortisol is really pivotal. So that's my first tip for you. Okay, second tip. And I think you all know I love this one. I've done a couple of videos on it. I wrote about it in Fast Like a Girl. And it is the power of the 36-hour fast. This is specifically belly fat. So I quoted a research study in Fast Like a Girl, and it was a 30-day study where they looked at people fasting 36 hours on and 12 hours off. And they repeated that for 30 days. 36 hours on, 12 hours off. And what they found at the end of that day or at the end of that month was that the prime location that the people in that study lost weight was the belly. So we've got to sometimes lean into the longer fasts. As much as I know that I like the shorter fasts, as much as I want to give you all variation that you can step into and decide what fits for you, if you're specifically going after belly fat, I highly, highly, highly recommend you throw some 36-hour fasts into your fasting lifestyle. And it's really up to you how often you do it. I've seen people in our academy do it once a week and really change the circumference of their waist. I have other people that I've worked with that do it once a month just to make sure that the belly fat doesn't accumulate on their waist. And then I have other people that do it once a year. So it's how aggressive do you want to be? Now, always, I hope you all know that I'm always a fan of you being sensible about this. So I know we have some overachievers out there and you're going to want to fast 36 hours all the time. And I want to encourage you that once a week is probably good, even though the study was 36 hours, 12 hours of eating. You could try to reproduce that, but I want to set you up for long-term success. One of my favorite quotes that I heard recently is that the best diet for you is the one you could stick with long-term. So I'm going to say the same thing with your fasting lifestyle. The best fasting lengths for you are ones that you can do long-term. And 36 hours done for a month followed by 12 hours of eating that was great for the study, but I know that's not sustainable long-term. So once a week, once a month, it depends on how aggressive you want to be, but always be safe. Please always be safe. And then the third one, and this is really interesting because I haven't really talked about this a lot on this channel, and you're going to hear me talk more and more about it. But what we have to know when it comes to burning fat is that there are two different types of fat. So think about that for a moment. This is very much like metabolic switching. We have two different energy systems. So the two types of fat are white fat and brown fat. White fat tends to be that stubborn fat that is very hard to burn. It's also the fat that's going to kill you. So it's the visceral fat. It's the fat around the organs. It's the fat around the belly. That is white fat. And the more we try to diet and go after the white fat, the more it's like banging your head against a wall. It gets really frustrating. So what we know from science, thank you science, that we know that fasting turns white fat into brown fat. Now, brown fat is much easier to burn. So we want to mobilize that fat. We want to get it so that you have more brown fat, so all the different fasting lengths will be more accessible for burning and turning into ketones. White fat doesn't turn into ketones as easily. Brown fat does. So when I dove into the research on this topic, what I found was that there wasn't any magic length to turn white fat into brown fat, but just the continual behavior of fasting, of intermittent fasting, of all the different 6 lengths of fast that I talk about in Fast Like a Girl, just the habit of building a fasting lifestyle where you are fasting most days, you're not fasting some days, you're experimenting with the longer fast. This is what our primal ancestors did, and this is what we're genetically made to do. So, and in the action of your fasting lifestyle and varying your fasts, you're going to turn white fat into brown fat. And now your workouts are going to burn that fat easier. The next longer fast you go on is going to burn that fat easier. So it's like you're taking the storage of fat and you're making it more accessible. So keep building yourself a fasting lifestyle. If you're new to my channel, I have a whole bunch of videos on that. Women, I gave you a whole book on this. Fast Like a Girl has a whole book that you can learn how to build a fasting lifestyle around your hormones. The other thing, and I'm going to give this as a bonus, I'm going to tell you it's not my favorite activity, but a lot of you are doing it, and I want to explain why it's so good for belly fat, and that is doing cold plunges. So cold plunges, the science is there that cold plunges turn white fat to brown fat. So if you really wanted to put all these concepts together that I just spoke of, you would work out 2 hours after you get up in the morning, you would move, you get up and walk around after stressful events, you would front load your day, you would go periodically do a 36-hour fast, and then you just keep building yourself a fasting lifestyle and then throw a few cold plunges in there every once in a while. That's going to get at belly fat, I promise you. So I hope that helps. Please put in the comments if you've done any of that, so that I love reading your comments and what has worked for you. I love seeing your weight loss results, so please put in the comments how much weight you've lost fasting. It's so freaking fun for me to see how much weight you all have lost. And if you want to learn more about what I just explained, this is what we do in my Reset Academy, is we show the art of fasting. We teach you how to customize it for you. So I hope this video opened your mind to belly fat. And I hope when you look in the mirror, you don't just keep villainizing it and telling yourself horrible things. Please don't tell yourself horrible things. There's a reason your body accumulated fat. It is to save your life. And once you understand that, it becomes much easier to undo. So let me know if that helps. And as always, from the bottom of my heart, keep fasting. And I hope that really changes your life. Appreciate you.